are increasingly taking charge of their careers. But are they taking equal charge of their money? They are leading businesses and breaking barriers across professions. Yet, when it comes to investing and building wealth, many still remain on the sidelines. Why does this gap persist? Is it a question of confidence, access, financial literacy, or simply the way money conversations have been shaped for generations? Joining me today is Sumaira Abidi, author of The Indian Woman's Essential Guide to Investing and Building Wealth, a book that seeks to demystify money and make financial independence more accessible for women. So, you've written a book on Indian women and investment, a guide for them. Do you think the journey to financial security differ for women? And if yes, how does it differ for Indian women very specifically?
So, hi Akshita, thanks very much for having me here. I'm very excited to be on Daily Salar, and thanks for giving your platform to this conversation, which is really important in today's context. You asked why I think the financial planning requirements differ between men and women. Well, it's ordinarily you'd think that the products are the same, right? Mutual funds are the same for men and women. Shares and gold and whatever else you may choose, any kind of asset is the same for men and women. But where it differs is that women have face a lot of unique challenges, which perhaps men don't. Okay, for example, statistically speaking, women tend to live longer than men, right? So if that is the case, if you are relying on your husband to make all the decisions, but you outlive him, what do you plan to do at that time? A lot of Indian women, especially, might take a mid-career break, or they might exit the workforce entirely, sometimes to take care of children, sometimes to take care of elderly people in the family. Uh, you lose your income at that time. If you need to, if a situation arises where you need to be able to independently take financial decisions, how are you going to be able to do that? Today, a lot of women are choosing to stay single, right? If you're going to live the next 30, 40, 50 years on your own, you need to know what's going on, right? You cannot always be reliant on others. There are women who are single mothers. So there are, and irrespective of whether you're a man or a woman, you need to be, sorry, you need to be financially savvy, right? And more so for women because every day we wake up, we read news of, women finding themselves in very vulnerable positions. There's still a lot of crime and violence against women. Uh, it is more important, therefore, that, we don't just say that, I have this, women are earning more, they're independent, they're self-sufficient. That's not enough. You may earn, but do you have the confidence to take money decisions? Unless you can do that, it is very difficult to leave a situation where you may find yourself trapped, right? So you need to be in today's context. It's very, very important for young girls and women of all ages to actually take money matters into their whole own hands so that they can define, their own future, and they're not reliant on anybody. They can exit and enter situations as per their will, not because they don't have another choice.
So it truly gives them independence in the life to make other decisions and be able to come out of spaces that they are not comfortable with it because of money decisions. Again, here, like you mentioned, that how women are not confident enough when it comes to money. A lot of times, at least in today's time, we do hear lot about shares or mutual funds and conservative approaches like PPF or FDs. But still, what are the psychological barriers, as you explain in your book, that there are psychological barriers as well, behavioral challenges that women face majorly. Can you tell us a bit more about this? What are these, and why is there lack of confidence in women when it comes to taking money decisions?
So, Akshita, say you and I have both grown up in Indian homes, right? So you would have seen that I mean, families don't really talk about money. I'm sure there are families who do, but by and large, families don't.
Yeah.
As in when, money is spoken about, you always see it's mostly the male members of the
Right.
family who will take the decisions.
Yeah.
The women are sometimes kept informed, sometimes even consulted, but it is not a very active sort of consultation. In this background, women grow up thinking that, it's not really my domain. It's not really something that I need to be actively involved in. Even when families are teaching children about, the business, now, of course, things are changing very dramatically. So don't get me wrong. I don't want to typecast our women. Many of our women are really big achievers, but I'm talking about the general
Majority
populace.
of them, yeah.
You see that, a lot of things are taught to sons.
Mm.
So if your family is the first classroom and women are already excluded over there, they're starting life on a back foot, right? At least
Yeah.
the financial aspect of their life. Uh, so you grow up thinking that, this is not something I should do. And in any case, we have found, I've spoken to a lot of wealth managers, and they tell me that women are generally more conservative as investors. So if a woman was to invest her money, the kind of assets she would choose would be much more conservative than a man. A man would say, go in even for trading. We are seeing in India now that, F&O trading had reached this sort of unnatural peak, right? You wouldn't find many women getting into that because it's considered to be very risky. So in general, they are risk averse, right? Behavioral challenge, I mean, this is just the general skeleton that we have. Besides this, there is this thing called this loss aversion. You're very scared to make losses, right? So even this whole thing of investing in gold is because there is this perception that gold just keeps appreciating, right? It will always give you more. Because of this whole, the way we have grown up, the kind of things we have heard around us, we are very scared to make losses. So in the financial market, the basic premise is that there will be volatility in the shorter term, right? What happens is that when you start investing in the first 1 or 2 years, if you see a very volatile period, you get very worried. But umpteen number of researchers have shown us that if you stay invested in the Indian market, if you would have invested on any 10-year period, the probability that your investment would have gone to zero would be negligible. I mean, it would be also zero. There is no chance that you will lose the entirety of your money. But people don't stay invested for 10 years before making that call, right? They will make that call in the next 6 months or 1 year after having made their investment. So this whole thing of being, scared to make a loss, right? Yes, there will be losses in the short term. That's the nature of the beast, right? The loss at that point is a notional loss, right? It is not actually a loss that is reflected in your bank. It is a loss because the market is down. If you redeem your money, if you withdraw your money at that time, then you will be turning your notional loss into an actual loss. If you stay invested and wait for the tide to turn, for the market to go up, your notional loss will once again turn into a notional profit. So, over the longer term, if you see, we've been through the global financial crisis, we've been through demonetization, we've been through COVID, we've been through umpteen number of scams. Has the market not moved higher? I mean, you have to just think about it, right? The market tides over every crisis. If you believe that the India's growth story really holds true, that in the next 3 to 5 years, India is going to become an economic force to reckon with, do you think the market will not keep pace with that growth? It will, right? Many times the market supersede that growth. The only thing is that you must be a little bit aware about what's happening. Try to understand why the equity market behaves the way it does. In the short term, there is no doubt there will be volatility. The longer term, it won't. So you have to, the behavioral challenges we have to overcome is just by understanding, right? Another thing which we see very, very often is that, there is this urgency to take action, right? It's
Yeah.
called the action bias. if you see you want to go in a building somewhere and you press the elevator and it takes time and you keep pressing it. But that's because we have this bias to keep doing, right? It's very difficult for us to sit still. There are quite a few biases. There is one recency bias, which is that whatever you have heard of the latest will sound the most true to you, right? So you will not see a 10-year history of the market. You will just see, oh,
Last
the
money.
market fell last week. I need to withdraw, otherwise sab khatam ho jayega and I'm going to lose all my money. So there are a lot of these biases which unknowingly all of us have. But now that we know we have these biases, we have to actually work to overcome them, right? Because this is not going to go away. It's just human nature.
Also, when we talk about women, one of the things is that we always see our mothers safe. Like every month, somehow a lot of homemakers end up saving, and that's the measure that a homemaker does. I'm talking about a very narrow, a very homemaker specific population who is not working, who is not in the active labor market, but who chooses to be in the home. And a lot of their savings is just piled up over the years in terms of cash in the house, and they have it kept for emergency. What would be your advice to these homemakers ki saving and investment kya ye alag hai, and why should they start investing first rather than just keeping savings with this inflation that we have today? So what would be your advice to them? And yeah.
So my advice to everyone always is to invest, right? Whatever the question, the answer is always that you have to invest, right? You mentioned inflation. Um so when we think of money or we think of returns, our tendency is to always think in absolute terms, right? So I have cash in the house, it's 100 rupees today. Tomorrow or next week when I need it, the value will still be 100 rupees. What we are not factoring in is that the purchasing power of the money keeps reducing as the inflation rises, right? जो आज हमें 100 रुपए में चीज मिल रही है वो 6 महीने बाद शायद नहीं मिलेगी, शायद वो 125 150 में मिलेगी. Likewise, a lot of homemakers feel that, oh, savings account is enough, or whatever, any sort of traditional instrument. Here, what I want to say is that it is not enough to think of the value in absolute terms or the return in absolute terms. The main thing you have to see is ki, what is a real return. So the real return of your money is the money that you have or the return that you get in your hand minus inflation, minus taxes. Now, ठीक है, if you have cash, there is no tax, etc. But any sort of expense, उसके बाद जो आपके हाथ में आता है, that is real return. So the purchasing power of money will reduce as the inflation increases. Even if it doesn't reduce, you are foregoing the opportunity which that money can present, right? So if you, of course, a little bit you have to keep, in savings at home,
Emergency, yeah.
etc. You'll have an emergency fund in one of these places. But a good idea, if you are somebody who has, chunky money or lump sum money, start by, even if you don't want to invest in risky funds, there is now a whole bouquet of mutual funds that is available. There is a lot of literature, there is a lot of content available which can help, make you understand. Even if you start with something like a large cap fund or you start with something like a multi-cap fund, those are, or you start with a balanced advantage fund, which invests in equity and in debt as well. So you choose something which is, which you can be comfortable with, which you can understand. But I am not a very big fan of beyond having just money to spend over the next few weeks. Beyond that, if you have cash lying at home, you're doing yourself and your money a disservice, right? There is this concept I've explained in the book as well, that saving is not investing,
Yeah.
right? Saving is just the storing of money. Investing is when you're using that money to actively work in your favor by generating returns. So we must understand these terms, and I mean, you've worked hard. Your family have worked hard for that money, and it's about time you put that money to work for you as well.
We hear a lot about financial plans, and even in your book, you've detailedly explained how to make a financial plan for yourself. But how does a housemaker or a very young woman who just had started their first job and is just getting into this first income, how should they make a realistic financial plan? Now we have a lot of influencers on social media, or even using AI. People tend to have it, but a lot of reality does not hit. Like monthly expenses change, or there can be emergency, there can be just health issues in between that does take a pile of their money. So how should young women, homemakers, have a financial plan? Like where should they start from?
So I think the very first thing you need to start off with is first have an emergency fund, right? That is most important. Start with at least 1 month and build it up to minimum 3 months of expenses, right? This is important because so when you start investing, the one thing that works in your favor the most is compounding, right? Compound interest जो हमने स्कूल में सीखा था. Compounding is nothing but द मनी विच यू हैव इन्वेस्टेड उस पे कुछ रिटर्न आया है, वो जो रिटर्न आया है वो भी
कुछ रिटर्न।
इन्वेस्ट हो जाता है, सो योर रिटर्न इज ऑल्सो जनरेटिंग अ रिटर्न पर से. If you don't have an emergency fund, anytime you need to make a purchase or there is some emergency, you have to pay money for that, you will have to take out money from your investment. Every time you stop that, you are stopping your compounding journey, right? You're giving a jolt to it. It's like you're going on a highway in fifth gear and suddenly you have to keep pressing the brake. So having an emergency fund is the very first step, right? You can start, simultaneously depending on how much you're earning, how much you're saving. While you're building it, I would suggest that, nowadays you can do a SIP of even 100, 250, 500, whatever you can afford. If you can start, once you have about 2 months of expenses, you can start an SIP of 100, 200, 500. If you're somebody who's working, most likely you would be having insurance, health insurance given by your company.
Yeah.
I suggest that young people should also try to get their own health insurance, because a couple of issues, I think one of the cases I've highlighted in the book as well, is that when you change jobs, you will have to again wait 3 to 6 months for your new policy to kick in. In that time, you will remain uninsured. In any case, you can have a small, you don't need a very big one, but at least a small health insurance in your own name. Life insurance, if your family depends on your earnings. So a lot of people buy life insurance for their children. Let me just clarify that life insurance is to ensure the, I'm sorry if it sounds crude, life insurance is to just ensure the life of the earning member, right? If by you not being there, will your family face a financial setback? That is life insurance. So go for a term plan. There's no need to go for very fancy plans. Um, Once you have done this, then you have to start working actively on your investment portfolio. So you would have already had your one SIP, which you have started. People who are very young, they have the potential to take higher risk because their goals are very far away, right? So you must define the goals which you're investing for. Give a time period. I want to buy a house at 40. I want to retire at, nowadays everybody wants to retire at 30, but whatever is, you think
The
you want to do, you must have a goal and the period in which that goal must be fulfilled. If your goal is 7 years and above, matlab longer than 7 years, feel free to be, invested almost entirely in equity, because you need to have that alpha. Alpha is nothing but the excess return that you're generating, right? To be able to fulfill your goals. If your goal is between 3 to 7 years, or rather, I can say 3 to 4 years away, you may consider being part equity and part in debt, right? Because in within 3 years, the it's too near for us to be able to predict whether or not there will be any volatility. I mean, nobody can actually predict it, right? So it's better to have some sort of caution on your side. If your goal is 1 year away or less than a year away, then you have to be almost entirely in debt. That is because so that if there is volatility, your goal should not get derailed by not having enough money at that time. If you find that suppose your goal is that I want to buy a house of whatever X amount, and I want it by the time I'm 40, so I have 20 years ahead of me. I'm doing a SIP of 2000 rupees. If you find, and there are a lot of these SIP calculators on Google, you can just find one of them. If you find कि 2000 रुपए हर महीना जमा करने से 20 साल तक तब भी मेरा जो वो हाउस का अमाउंट है नहीं आ पा रहा, or whatever house में loan भी मिल जाएगा, but whatever is the amount, then you have to either increase the time period or increase your amount, right? If you cannot increase your amount right away, there's something called a top-up SIP. You
Hmm.
can opt for that, that every year when your salary increases, you can say that I want to increase my SIP by 5 to 10%. Normally, people will start with a 1,000, 2,000 SIP and keep it going in perpetuity for the next 20, 30 years. So even though their salary has increased 3, 4 times
Hmm.
since then, they will not increase their SIP amount. So please opt for a top-up SIP and be very, very conservative with credit, right? Especially credit cards. There is a tendency that, finally I'm on my own and I must buy the new iPhone and I want this scooty and I want, a car and I want to go to Goa with my friends. Please be very conservative. I've explained how the interest, you can really go awry. Understand the difference between good debt and bad debt. Credit card debt is very, very bad debt. So please be wary of that. And do keep money aside to invest in yourself, to upskill yourself. So do plan that also is one of the goals. And finally, I want to say that, your money is there for you to live a good life. So don't get too pressured into always that, I must invest. And Sumaira said, don't
Yeah.
spend money. I don't mean don't spend money. Do set aside some money. So depending on what you're earning and what are your expenses and how much you need to invest, budget for self-care or your own entertainment as well. Because, I mean, what is life if we cannot enjoy our
Right.
own money, right? But my only request is that please budget for it and don't, sort of exceed your budget. Or if you have exceeded your budget 1 month, then do try to sort of bring it back on track the very next month.
It's more about having clarity since the beginning that what you want in the long term so that the plan is clear, and then first focusing on the emergency fund and then slowly building up the other sets of investments while also being able to have a budget to enjoy the life as one would want, but having
Right.
clarity would solve a lot of problems in terms of financial plans. But also, what about homemakers who tend to get money from others who don't have their own source of income, or a lot of women tend to have irregular incomes at a lot of times? How can they make money work for them when there is no stable income?
So, nowadays there have been so many, I mean, the mutual fund industry has really done a lot of work in making it very, very convenient for a person with any sort of constraints to invest in, right? If you are somebody who doesn't have regular income and, maybe an SIP therefore might not be ideal, but even then, if you have, see, you get lump sum money, right? Um, a lot of people advise that you should not invest lump sum at one point, right? So you keep it in your savings and then you can do an SIP from there, right? Because it is systematic, it's a better way to invest money. A lot of people say that, you know what, you're investing today, even if the market is volatile, it doesn't matter because you're investing for the next 10, 15 years. So now it depends on what exactly you're investing for. Again, it all comes down to goals, right? So it doesn't really matter if your income is sporadic. As long as you're clear about what you need the money for, what are you investing for? If your goal is 10, 20 years away, if, I suppose I'm saving for retirement, I can even afford to put the entire lump sum at one point, right? However, if it's something, or I feel that I may need some money, or I may get some more money later, or I'm not comfortable, putting so much money at one time in the market, you can put it in a liquid fund, and you can start something which is called a systematic transfer plan. So what happens is that if you invest money, you put your lump sum in a debt fund, which tend to be much less volatile than equity. And then you give instructions that every month, systematically from the debt fund, my money should move to equity fund, right? So SIP is that the money is going from your bank account
Yeah,
to the equity fund. STP is that you have put the lump sum in a debt fund. So that lump sum is also earning some return, and systematically it will get transferred into your equity. The other thing is that people who have sporadic income may want to regularize their income. How can you do that? For that as well, if you have collected a portfolio, right? If suppose you have an investment kitty, you can start something which is called a systematic withdrawal plan. So just like we were doing SIP from your bank to equity fund and STP from a debt fund to equity, you can do from equity back to your bank account,
right.
right? So it becomes like a systematically you're withdrawing. I don't recommend it for people who are saving for goals, right? But this is especially useful if you have, income which is sporadic. So please don't keep it in your savings account thinking कि मुझे 3 महीने बाद घर में कैसे चलाऊंगी and घर का खर्चा करना है. You can invest that money and start a SWP so that whenever you get your lump sum income, you invest it, but your daily or your monthly expenses you can take out from a SWP. This is also an ideal solution for people who are retired.
Right. So it sounds like for different scenarios in life, there is something available right now. It's just that you get access to that information and plan it accordingly. And I think even in the book, you have mentioned a lot about mid-career professionals, or a lot specific to women problems like widowhood or planning their retirement, which very rarely Indian women tend to do. And before we end, this is the book, by the way, for our audience, which has almost all the circumstances covered, which happens only to women, especially around money, because a lot of us are left uncertain when situations happen in our life. And before we end, one last question. What are the top three questions that women should ask when they take financial advice, especially from fund managers or policy salesperson? What should be their first point of knowledge, the top three questions? Or even when a lot of us young people see social media and there are a lot of financial advices over there as well, what should be a basic questions there?
So I think the few questions that every woman needs to ask their financial planner or advisor, or even herself, if she wants to, manage her own money. First is that, what do I need this money for, right? So if you're investing through a financial planner, you need to ask them that, sorry, you will need to tell them your goal and then ask them that, what is the strategy that you're recommending for me, right? A lot of people, there are advisors who are very conservative. There are advisors who are very aggressive in the plan that they suggest. So you have to be able to find that. The second thing that she must ask is that what is the kind of asset allocation that you're planning to do for me? And finally, is that, if there is volatility in the market, can I count on you to actually guide me through it? Because the problem is that the first time a first time investor sees the market fall for the first time, it leads to a lot of sleepless nights. This is when, if you have an advisor, you call them and they say, you know what, Akshita, there's nothing for you to worry about. Just chill, go back, do your job, go to sleep at night. This will really help. So if there is a woman who can, sort of be guided at that time, she will really be able to tide over. And I think besides this, I've listed a lot of questions in the book about how to judge a financial advisor as well. So maybe, people can just sort of read through. But the main thing that whether you're making your plan or somebody else is making, you must know the strategy, you must know the asset allocation, and you must know that, what is the kind of risk that comes with this product, and whether or not you can count on your advisor to guide you through the tough times.
So it's, access to information is the first step that they should always proactively take, irrespective of where they are in their life and what plan they want to have. Thank you so much for your time and for such an amazing book that you have written. Thank you.
Thank you, Akshita. And just one final word that I want to leave you with is for all women, a lot of us think that, oh, I'm empowered because I'm working, I have a successful career. But my own take on empowerment is that please don't let it be just a feeling. Okay, empowerment is actually a number. And unless you have access to that number, unless you know what that number is, and unless you're independently in charge of that number, to my mind, it is not true empowerment, right? So, women, please, ladies, go out, work on your own empowerment, be independently in charge of at least a portion of the money which you can rely on to help you out.
Thank you. Thank you for this final advice.
Thanks.